Hello, today we have with us here and who did exceptionally well in the SAT. Over to you here. So please tell our audience about yourself.
Good evening, sir. My name is Hiya Atre. I study in Hopetown Girls School. I had a score of 1470 in the August SAT, and I've just come off and I just finished my second attempt on the 2nd of October. So yes, and I am in grade 12 and I have science as my subject because I want to do science in a more broad way. I want to do a physics major, but I want to somehow be able to get into a liberal arts university just in case, to keep my options open, just in case I want to do, earth sciences or anything else, anything that piques my interest. So my SAT journey actually started a long time ago because I was planning to give the May SAT as my first SAT and then the August one as my second. But what had happened was, because of COVID, the May SAT got cancelled. Like, our center wasn't a center anymore, so that's why we had to cancel it. And that's why I started preparing for the August SAT sometime in June, July. And the first ever test that I had, full test that I had taken on Khan Academy, I had got an 1120 score. And I knew that it was a terrible score. And I said, okay, I need to build myself up from there. So slowly, I've started practicing on that portal. I started, looking at areas of concern, and I tried to do a lot. So I built up my score to about a 1230, 1240. But I was stabilizing there. Like, I did not go beyond that 1200 mark. 1250 mark. I wasn't even hitting 1300, 1350. So then I realized that there was probably some sort of some misunderstanding in the concept or in the paper, because sometimes even if you understand English or math, it's about the way the paper is set. So to actually crack that, then I went and I asked a lot of my friends for, contacts, and a lot of people. I tried to reach out to a lot of people, but very few people actually replied in time or, replied fast enough and efficiently enough. But when I had reached out to you, and that was personally, I hadn't even told my mother I was doing it, but I just said, okay, let me just see what it's like. So I had reached out to you and I had said that, this is where I am and this is what is happening. And I think that's where it actually started, and that's where I actually started focusing and spending a lot of time on SAT ever since I got guidance from you. So yeah, that was the first half of the journey.
From starting with a score of around 1100s in your initial mocks to all the way 1470. So this is a massive jump, so not very often seen, among the SAT test takers. So it must have been a very painstaking journey to begin with, or must have taken a lot of effort in terms of practicing, in terms of doubt clearing, so how did you build yourself throughout this journey? How did you improve subsequently from one test to the other to reaching a score of 1470?
So I think, sir, the first couple of classes I had with you, I was still, I think, a little laid back for, somebody who's giving the SAT and doesn't have such a good score. So I was like, okay, it'll happen. But I remember that the first class where you had put me in the crash course class, and everybody else was way ahead of me. So I had this sense of competition in me where I just said that I can't be this behind, I can't be people were answering 5 minutes before I was, and I was painstakingly solving each question. And then I realized that, that these people have, of course, done it before. So this is their second attempt. So I shouldn't compare myself too harshly, but also I shouldn't, give up. And I should try and beat them and try and beat their scores. And I think that sense of competition really helped me push myself, because in every crash course class, I'd be like, okay, this is the person who's doing better. I want to answer before him and I want to answer correctly. So that sense of competition that I built inside myself because of that crash course class is what got me to really throw myself into SAT. And then I remember the first practice test that I gave after that, I had a score of about a 1350. Mm-hmm. And I still wasn't satisfied, because I said, okay, this is good enough for somebody who is, I've jumped from 1230 to 1350, but still it's not there. And then and I'd come to you with doubts, and you had told me that, and you had a very clear, I think you can say, not explanation, but you knew which parts were of mine were lacking. And you tell me that, and then I'd just go on Khan Academy and just practice and practice and practice till I reach level 4 and beyond. And I remember like my biggest accomplishment was when I saw that you have practiced all level 4 questions in this section. There are no more questions. So that's when I knew that, okay, so this section is pakka, now I can move on. And that's when I slowly started getting better and better. And then I remember when I got my first 1400 plus score, which was a 1430. And I was with my cousins that time, and I told my family that I've got a 1430. And all of them still told me to do more and more. And I think that support from my family as well, that they didn't settle, that they said, okay, you made a jump, you can make a further jump, you can be better and better and better. That they said you can even hit a 1500, For them, it was just like part of that I actually gave before actually giving my SAT. I got a 1470 score, and I was told to recheck my paper because they didn't believe it. And after that, when I had actually rechecked it and made sure that all of my answers and questions were right, they said just keep it consistent, because we can't have 1470 at home and 1300 in the SAT. So I think all of those factors, including always coming to you with doubts, and the one good thing is that you, for some reason, I don't know how much time you have in a day, but you always made time for me to actually clear my doubts. And I'd send them to you in a PDF, and then we'd sit down and try and figure it out together. So I think that, plus all the support I got from my family, plus the competition that I had inside of me, that no, I can do better and better and better. I think that is what got me to 1470 much faster than I think anybody expected.
So that's very nicely you've summarized your preparation journey here. So speaking of resources, a lot of students are confused when they there's so many books out there in the market, so many test series. So there's no dearth of preparation material, right? So that leaves a lot of students confused. So what resources did you refer to? And what would be your advice to the students who are watching this in terms of the study material they should refer to get a good score?
Right. So I first had, like, in the initial stage where I was actually grappling for any sort of resources, I had downloaded a gazillion books. I had, various sources, various people telling me that you can get this score, you can get that score. But for me, then when I started actually preparing for the SAT, I stuck to very particular sites. Like Khan Academy was the one site where I went and refined all my formulae. Like I made sure that in the math section, in the reading section, in the writing section, all of those places I had a level 4. And I made sure that Khan Academy was my main focus, and it was my main portal. Apart from that, I had also ordered the college book, and you can find it online also. The College Board formal SAT book, where they have all the concepts explained. It's a huge thick book, and in the end they have a few practice tests. So I started doing those practice tests over and over again, and that's how I also solidified some of my concepts. And I also understood that this is how College Board wants, how SAT wants you to answer your questions. And I think the good thing about College Board's explanation, especially when it comes to reading, because I think with classes, we couldn't do as much reading because it takes a lot more time. They give you the explanation about why a certain answer is more correct than the other. Because with MCQs, you feel like all of them have some sort of resemblance to the question and the answers are somewhat correct. But why the answer that they have chosen is most correct, I think that explanation is also very important. Apart from that, though, I didn't have too many resources. So I just used that book. I used Hello Study Global portal. And the PDF, which had all the math formulas, I know that I, went over them again and again to solidify them, just in case, even though in the SAT they give you certain formulae in the beginning. And I just went to that portal, and I went to Khan Academy, and I referred to my book from time to time, and that's it. I just use very few resources. I feel that if you use too many resources, there can be a certain sort of confusion in the way that people explain things to you. So if there's a very set way of explanation also, it's a good way to move ahead in the SAT.
Absolutely. And also toward the end, you would want to, when you would like everything, to revise everything and go through, give a cursory look to everything. it becomes pretty daunting task if you've had been referring a lot of study material. That's why it's always recommended to pick up very limited or focused study material as far as your preparation is concerned. Great, wonderful. And can you talk about your exam day experience, how things went there? Starting from when you entered the venue, the exam hall, so the process was smooth?
Yes, sir. I think I was very comfortable when it came to the exam day. Because it was in my school, so the center was Hope Town. So for me, it was a very familiar place. So when they said, go to this place, go to this room number, I automatically knew where it was. So I didn't have that sense of fear that, okay, maybe I get lost, maybe I don't find my place in time, because all the teachers are very cooperative. Plus, I knew them, so I could very explicitly go and ask them that, this is what is happening.
Probably one. Yes. Sorry. So probably one piece of advice could be that if you can book your test center in the school which is familiar to you, so you'll find that stress-free environment. Which,
yes, exactly. So we went into and then we went into a room where I had actually given my pre-boards. So for me, it just felt like a constant process that had happened. And then I think on the test day, I was a little nervous about getting everything, like making sure that I had my admit card, I had my RT-PCR, I had my calculator, and I had my pencils and all of that. But luckily, I had packed my bag the day before, and I'd made sure everything is set out. So that's why I wasn't very concerned about that on the test day. And I think the major pressure that you get is before you get your paper in your hand. So you get the OMR sheet, but then they wait a little before they give you the paper. So I think that for me was the scariest thing. Also, I think the one part where I was a little confused is where they had written US zip code in the OMR sheet, and I wasn't very sure what I had to write in that. Then I realized we had to leave it blank. And then the test number, which is on the test booklet that they give to you. So there's a form code and there's a different number. So looking for that, I think the first time I had done it, it had really, thrown me off. But luckily, everything is very clearly marked out there, and, they've given it to you. It's at the front of your test booklets. It's at the back of your test booklet. So slowly but surely, you can figure out all of that. But I think once the paper started, once they said, okay, time start now, you start reading, it just felt like another practice test. After you've done a lot of practice tests, like the day before, like the week before, actually, the SAT, I had just done practice tests. I hadn't even practiced particular formula. I had just done tests and tests and tests. So I think that had really helped me out and made sure that the SAT didn't feel like a very pressurizing exam for me. It was very calm and went very smoothly.
Wonderful. So any final piece of advice for the students who are watching? How can they, as far as practicing the mock test is concerned, you might have practiced yourself in a particular way, maybe by simultaneously answering on the OMR sheet the way it is expected in the actual exam. Any piece of advice to the students as far as test taking strategy is concerned?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be that people should try and throw themselves into situations where they aren't very comfortable. Because if you're doing it all alone, you feel as though you're doing well, even if you're not doing that well. And if you get competition, I feel that was my biggest saving grace, that I got competition. So I said, no, I must do better and better and better. And I think the other thing is that in self-study, you should really time yourself properly. Because I remember the first few tests with reading, I used to take a lot more time than I, actually, then later when I got used to it. So I think timing yourself, throwing yourself into difficult situations, even if it's, in the end, I also told one of my friends and I to solve papers together so that we could compare our scores and teach each other towards the end. So I think things like that, even if they cannot reach out for help through their parents, or maybe it's too late, then they should just focus on concepts that they find weak and just, keep on going through that step by step by step. And there's, with the SAT, there's always another chance. So you shouldn't be too scared.
Absolutely. And rectifying the another important thing is, as you solve these tests, one test after the other, it's important to rectify the mistakes that were made in the previous test.
Yes, definitely.
Moving on to the next test, would more or less give you the same score. So how did you rectify your mistakes, and made sure that those are not repeated in the next test, so that you saw the apparent growth in your test score, as you mentioned in the mocks also, before you saw the score in your actual exam. So how did you improve a test after the test?
Yes, sir. So like you said, it's critical to actually look at your mistakes before you move forward. Like there is no point of writing two tests simultaneously if you haven't actually gone through exactly what you messed up in the previous test. And with math and with writing, I used to come to you and I would ask you about all my doubts. And with reading, I'd catch hold of my mom and sit down with her and tell her to explain to me why a certain answer is more correct. And even if others, sometimes people don't have time, parents don't have time, grown-ups don't have time, you just sit, and if you carefully read through each of the explanations that even they give to you, either in the test that you've given, or at Khan Academy, where they give you all the explanations, if you carefully read through them, then the understanding of the way that they ask a question is very it becomes obvious to you, and you see what parts of the passage or what parts of the questions you need to focus on apart from the other questions about, like, from the other parts of the same thing. So yeah, I think that is what helped me.
Wonderful. So great. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for visiting our channel. To stay updated with more such content, subscribe our channel and also visit our website www.hellostudy.org to know more about how to get high scores in the SAT exam.